Welcome to Israel's channel, Dr. Suleyman, our Sirah lecturer at Charles Sturt University and Israel Academy. A question that I have for you, as someone who teaches the Sirah and has done his PhD on the Sirah, how do we connect with the Prophet, peace be upon him? I want to put a context to that a bit as well. We all know the importance of the Prophet, but yet he lived 1400 years ago, and we sometimes find it hard to connect to someone that we can't physically meet in today's time. What do you suggest?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for inviting me. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. So I think that's a question that we frequently get from people, at the distance particularly sometimes become a barrier to acknowledge the value and importance of the Prophet ﷺ for us in modern times. But I think how we know him, first and foremost, we should revisit our tradition. I think that should be a starting point. So when we look at the Quran gives a responsibility for believers that you have to know him. It's a condition of our faith. Knowing and loving the Prophet ﷺ is not optional for believers. Quran is very clear on that. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Quran says, if you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you care that Allah should love you or you believe in him, Quran is very clear. فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. You need to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so Allah loves you. It's a condition for our faith. It's very, very powerful. And in the hadith tradition, we don't have anything different. Prophet ﷺ says, you are not a true, genuine believer, or we can translate this as your faith, your iman is not complete unless you love me more than you love yourself, your parents. So I'll give an example for this one. This really always triggers an anecdote in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. One day, Prophet ﷺ was walking in the streets of Medina. Abdullah ibn Umar narrates this anecdote. He was walking with a group of companions, including his own father, Umar. Out of a sudden, Prophet ﷺ did something very different. He took Umar's hand and he asked him, do you love me? Like, he was overwhelmed, with that affection, with that gesture. And indeed, he asked few things. Do you love me more than your parents? He said, yes. Do you love me more than your children? He said, yes. And Prophet ﷺ, he said, do you love me more than yourself? He paused and he left the Prophet's hand. He left the scene. Umar radiallahu, he was shocked. This wasn't something he was expecting. His son, Abdullah, says, I followed him. He went back to home. He sat down, put his head in between his hands, thought about it for some time, and immediately rushed to the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, yes, I love you more than myself.
That's very powerful in the sense that he's got such self-awareness. Like some of us would have just said, yeah, I do love you more than myself, but he's got such self-awareness. Sorry to cut you off, but then, but also then to be able to realign himself to what it should be.
Absolutely. Like his son says, why didn't you say in the first place? He asked the exact same question. Why wouldn't you say, yes, I love you more than myself? He said, I put my parents in a scenario that, okay, I'm going to sacrifice them for the sake of the love of the Prophet. My heart was content with that. It was okay. I put my children, it was okay. I put myself, it wasn't okay.
Wow.
And then I thought about it and I, contemplated about it. He doesn't want to lie. He's true to himself. As you said, he's self-aware. Companions are different. I think we need to make that clear. I think they are really gifted personalities in many ways. This genuineness of companions is something that we always see when we read about their lives. They don't pretend. They
Love
are
it.
themselves. Whoever they are, they
Yeah.
really present that in the very clearly. There's no filter, if you like.
Such integrity.
Yeah, so he said, after that, but what I take from this is a deliberate decision we need to make. It's a condition of
Yes.
faith. That's why I need to think about it. I need to improve. I need to work on it. I can't just say, I love Allah, I love the Prophet more than my children, myself. That's a lie. That's what Omar didn't do.
Yeah.
But what
You
is
have to mean
required
it.
is it requires, as we need to build, if the faith is an extraordinary palace that we need to build, bricks. So we are building our own eternal life house. So through, understanding what faith is, what is required of me in terms of believing in Allah, all the pillars, essentials of faith, it needs tahqiq. We need to verify and believe, not just taqleed, just pretend or follow up, blindly imitate our
Yeah.
parents.
Okay, that brings me to my point. I'm glad you added it needs time and investment, but in today's world where it's such an individualistic society, if Omar Radiallahu anh struggled, he was, an amazing person. What chance do we have of getting to that state? Or do we
We
just
need,
aspire to it?
we have every chance to get that state.
Oh, okay. I like the
Really,
confidence.
really, yeah. Why? Because why would you love someone? There are several reasons. Physical attraction is one reason.
Mm.
So then study Shemail of the Prophet. You will
Oh.
love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? You have a reason to love him, an extraordinary reason, right? Another reason is, inner beauty, not physical beauty, akhlaq of it,
Akhlaq, the character.
right? The character, the nobility, the way they conduct themselves. Once again, study the life of the Prophet. Shemail has that second aspect of it. You will love him. And most importantly, why would you love someone? The third reason is the favor that you receive from someone. You think about your parents, right? Why? Like you have natural inclination to love your parents because they are the most critical people, has lots of favors to you with no conditions. So Prophet's case is exactly as that.
I love
Like a
how you break that down. Yeah,
like the parent, I think
yeah.
about that. Quran is very clear in Surah Al Imran. لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Quran says, indeed Allah has done a great favor على المؤمنين for believers. إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ, by sending a messenger from among themselves. So Prophet ﷺ, being a human being like me, having a human, form, going through sicknesses, calamities, hardship, revisiting another verse as uswatun hasana in those different circumstances. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In him, there is the greatest example that you can take. And uswatun hasanatun doesn't have a limitation in Arabic form. In any case, if you're orphan, go back to the life of the Prophet. That's a beautiful example there. If you're a parent, go back to the Prophet. Beautiful example is that. If you are struck with calamity of losing your children, he has lost, several of his children. Think about it. If you are tested by your close kins, unfortunately, one of the scribes of him, who is a katib for wahi, was writing recitation for the Prophet. He changed his position, went to the other side, worked against him, learned from the Prophet. So in terms of the favors, coming back to the first verse, Allah has bestowed a great favor upon believers by sending him as a human being. So
yeah. So there's a lot of points of connection, isn't there? As we can relate. There's a connectability. We can relate to him. I think sometimes what we do is we put him. I mean, we should put him on a pedestal because he's a prophet. But sometimes we make that a big distance, as though, oh, he was a prophet. I could never really connect with him. But from what you're explaining, we really can find so many avenues to connect with him. And as human beings, as you said, like all those things that make us love someone, you can approach him, the Prophet ﷺ, through those avenues.
Absolutely. Like, I think, as I said at the beginning, that's a deliberate outcome or result or objective for us. Love of the Prophet, as we said, it's a condition for my faith. I need to fulfill that condition. To be able to fulfill that condition, I need to know him through these various channels that is out there, and he is relevant. But there is another thing. Quran in Surah Hujurat uses a very interesting expression. It has a context. It is definitely in the context that this verse is revealed, is talking to companions or people in Medina at that time. Surah Hujurat revealed in Medina. But the verse, we believe that Quran is timeless, and we believe the miraculous nature of the Quran. Quran is using a very different way of expressing Prophet's physical existence. وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Know that the messenger of Allah is among yourself.
Oh, okay.
So it's, the way this is articulated, when I read it, I literally take it literally.
Oh, you say
أَنَّ
even
فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا.
now I get it.
He is with you.
Okay.
And I will substantiate this,
Wow.
my argument with another verse.
Hmm.
Quran is very clear in Surah Al Imran. It says, don't assume that martyrs are dead,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. We all know
They
that.
are not dead. They are alive, but you don't understand.
Different dimension, but they're
But
alive.
different dimension.
Mm.
And Quran again says, مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ. In terms of ranking, at the top of hierarchy, Nabiyyin, prophets, Siddiqin, who are truthful, وَالشُّهَدَاء, martyrs are the third ranked people. So we are thinking about martyrs in the Quran's perspective, Quran's perception or worldview. They are not dead. How come the first one is dead? Nabiyyin, who is, in a
If the
higher
third
rank.
one's not dead, how can the
So
first
I
one
think,
be
like,
dead?
yes, we know that he died and he was buried
Of course.
in Medina. But I think, with his teachings, with his extraordinary life and its extraordinary relevance in every context that we live in, despite the passage of time, we can take this literally that he is not dead. If we really understand that, visiting another verse, Allah is not going to punish you. Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Quran says, as long as you are among them, Allah is not going to send a punishment, overall punishment. And as long as you are among them with your teachings, He's not going to punish you as well. And as long as they make istighfar, the last passage of the Quran. So I think, not boring, people or bombarding people with so many verses, we should really understand this love, knowing and loving the Prophet and his proximity to us, see it a bit differently, that really
Yeah.
he should be with us. And that's the major problem of the modernity. In modern times, we have this serious problem.
Serious problem of?
Like taking everything in a material sense,
Okay.
looking with the eye of material,
Material.
and
So true.
Islam and faith is beyond this meta, beyond, we sometimes need to understand it and appreciate the other dimensions of life to be able
Yeah.
to properly appreciate the position of the Prophet and what he means for us as his ummah after 15th century.
You've said a lot of things that are probably very new for our audience, but it's very good. It blows the mind. Just want to summarize it. So you're saying that with the Prophet ﷺ, in the Quran, he mentions that he is amongst us. And because the Quran is timeless, it doesn't mean it was referring to 1400 years ago. Secondly, you mentioned that the martyrs are not dead, as mentioned in the Quran, and the ranking is third. So if the third ranking is not considered dead, and obviously we're talking about different dimensions, which the modernity doesn't appreciate, then the first level, the Nabi, will not be dead either. And then the third point was the masses would not get destroyed as long as the Prophet is there. Is that what you said?
Prophet is there, like وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. You are among them, either physically or with your teachings, with your message.
That's very powerful. So we often think of, again, the Prophet as being some distance, but his teachings are here. But in a way, we have to think of beyond the physical and appreciate his presence in today's time, and allow ourselves to be able to connect, I guess, with our spiritual heart, particularly. I would say that connection is so important to knowing him. And we do have those sources, like you said, the Shema. We know what he looked like. If you want to know what he looked like physically, read up on it. You don't have to see someone to know them. Novels do that all the time. You get to know a character in a novel without ever seeing them, because of the way they are described and explained and so forth. And also his character is also, you can know so much. It's just we need to be able to access that information.
Absolutely. Like the beautiful part of our tradition is he's really described as if someone had a camera at that time. Took a beautiful picture of it. Like the words powerfully depict him. You will be amazed the way, Ma'bad, for instance, an old Bedouin in a desert, in a tent, when she encountered with the Prophet ﷺ, how she describes the Prophet. But one thing that many people don't know, Ma'bad was the auntie of Arqam ibn Abil Arqam, the famous companion who established the house of Arqam. It's a very noble woman.
Wow.
Probably she had some insights before meeting the Prophet. She was waiting for that moment, mentally ready. As soon as she saw the Prophet, she was literally recording everything in a way. And she started. The description is extraordinary. Similarly,
it's like when you're ready to meet, someone, like let's say the prime minister, some famous person, and the minute you meet them, you're so high alert. You want to capture every detail because it's so important to you. That's the kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Other people who describes him are like Ali. Like literally, he was with the Prophet since the age of 5 until Prophet ﷺ, he passed away. Another person is Khadija's son, Ibn Abi Hala. This person is, Khadija's son, Prophet's stepson. Like when they married, since the age of 25, long before the prophethood, knows him, his character, how he looks like. This person is describing the Prophet later on when Ali's children, they ask, that's kind of his own nephews, right? Asking him, can you explain how the Prophet looked like to us? Like he gives a beautiful, beautiful description.
Yeah, he doesn't have to think, I think he looks that way. I think he looked like that. I think he had curly, because as you said, he knew him for years. It's like us, I guess, in a way, describing our father to someone. You don't have to guess. You know so well because you've lived with that person for so long and interacted with them so much. Yeah.
Like that's physical side of it. Akhlaq side of it, he was out there in the society for years. And for good amount of 23 years as a prophet. Everybody was looking at him and to learn about their religion. And this was documented and it was explained. And Quran is very clear. Quran says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Like very, very powerful expression. You are upon the greatest, most exalted mannerism, character, akhlaq. So in Arabic,
so they're going to take note of his character clearly.
Quran says, you are upon the greatest character, right?
Yeah.
Azim is the only adjective you can describe the greatness of something.
Yeah.
It's very, very powerful expression. So later on, when you think about the entire Quran is saying Prophet is upon the extraordinary character. When people ask Aisha how the akhlaq of the Prophet was, Aisha says it was Quran.
Mm.
The Quran says you are upon, upon an extraordinary character. Piece of puzzles are complete. So the
Complete.
perfectness of character is that upon all of them, he himself says, I was sent. The only, like, innama bu'istu. Innama means, I was not sent, but this is the
But
only reason that I have
the
been sent,
only reason.
right? بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق, to complete, the perfect, the beautiful, extraordinary akhlaq. So here you go. That's your homework. Then you need to, if you want to know
Yes.
him and
Mm.
love him, then you need to study the Quran, because that's the akhlaq
Yeah.
of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You need to study his Sirah, because that is how how he lived, how he conducted himself in different contexts. You need to study Shama'il, because that
Mm.
teaches you how he looked like physically, and also the other inner dimension of it. So as I said, we have every reason
Hmm.
uh, to know and love him, but it's really upon us that we utilize these means and these resources.
Wow, that's been amazing. I think there's a lot of take-home messages there, and I guess I want to wrap up the conversation now. Do you have one final message you would like to relay? If you do, if you don't, that's fine. Before we finish off,
I think I'll finish off with another love story. How is that?
love stories always do well. Go for it.
Okay, okay. So I think we are trying to love him, right? I will give an example from someone who is sitting at the top of this list. The one who loves him the most. Guess who this person could be?
They all loved him so much, loved him the most.
But Prophet ﷺ, he said, I love him the most too. So it's mutual.
Oh, him. So it's not Aisha radiallahu anha.
One of them. Like, let's put in the, okay, that's good. It's Aisha's father, Abu Bakr.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
because let's give all the accounts then. So Aisha, one day, someone, Amr ibn As, a companion, great companion, he asked the Prophet, who do you love the most? So he was expecting that him, because he had a great success in those days, something that Prophet would love. So he was, that child going to the parents and saying, I did this. Who do you love the most? Of course, you. That's the expectation. Prophet said Aisha. He was a little bit disappointed. This is what Bukhari says. Min al-rijal, ya Rasulullah. Not from women folk, from the men folk, ya Rasulullah. Okay. Abuha, he said.
father.
Her father, Abu Bakr. So I'll just leave that there, but go to the other. As I said, this is mutual. So Abu Bakr's story, it's really, I think, among the companions, I personally think, like, I don't know the woman folk. As a man, I can connect to him more. So he really loves him the most. There are so many examples I can give, but I'll give one example. And this was narrated by Ali radiallahu anh later on when he was caliph. He asked his people, young followers, who has not seen many of the companions. He said, man ashja'un nas, who is the most courageous person? And they said, Anta ya Amir al-Mu'minin. Of course you, Ali, ya Amir al-Mu'minin, or the, Emir of the believers. Prophet Ali radiallahu anh said, no, 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 it's Abu Bakr. And he narrates this story that I'm going to mention. He is he puts in the courageous side, emphasizes the courageous side. But I really take that as the deep love he had, and how much he was sacrificing for the Prophet. If you love someone, you really show that through your sacrifices. You don't it's unconditional. You don't have a condition. If you do that, I will love you. Those things really disappear. So in early days, Muslims, they have gone through so many persecutions, hardship, And Prophet ﷺ was attacked one day. Ali is one of the early believers, and he said, we were not able to do anything. We were just watching. And these people were literally, physically attacking the Prophet. We heard a voice coming, rushing with a wide robe and saying, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَنْ يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا. Are you going to kill a person because he is saying, my Lord is Allah and one? And he came and he dispersed, and he was kind of, courageously opposing all these Meccans. And that was Abu Bakr, he said. And these people, they started to attack him. They beat him to death. Literally, they thought that he's dead. They left him. And people, they called Bani Taym tribe, because Abu Bakr is a senior leader of that particular tribe. They came and took him to his house. He was unconscious. This happened in the morning up until later in the evening. And when he came to his senses, immediately when he opened his eyes, he said, "Ma fu'ila bi Rasulillah." What happened to the Prophet, to Allah's Messenger? Look at
Wow.
the connection and love. He forgot about himself. He forgot about anything. And his mother, Al Khair, she said, what are you talking about? Whatever happened is happened because of that man. Eat and drink something. He said, no, I'm not going to taste anything until I know what happened to the Prophet. And they happened to find, story is long, someone in the Arkham's house, who came and said, he is in this house. He is safe. He said, take me to him. I want to see him. He is safe and secure. And, they took him to the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet saw him. He cried. And he said, I'm okay as long as you are okay. And he made it a very interesting thing, a suggestion. He said, you are the most noble person on the earth, and Allah will accept your supplication. Behind this door is my mother, who is nice to his family members. Allah will not reject your supplication, Ya Rasulullah. Make a supplication that he becomes a believer. And indeed, Prophet, he opened up his hands, and in that moment, Khair became a believer too. But the story is very clear, how much he loved him. So I
Absolutely.
think that was not just, because he's a very close associate to the Prophet. It was a deliberate thing, as I said. He knew what it means for him, what the value of the Prophet. You can understand from his request later on. He knew what is his position before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we really know him, as he deserves, what he means for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what he means for us, I think we will come to a similar conclusion and degree of love that Abu Bakr would have, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Very powerful love story. Thank you for that. May Allah enable us to love the Prophet as he deserves, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you for your time, and inshallah, we'll see you at another podcast.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.